Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our noon o'clock session. We're doing Accommodations in Tech with Ms. Golden and Ms. Eileen Coleman, our literacy coaches for the technology department for the district. I'm going to pop up and let them introduce themselves. Take it away, ladies.
Hi there. I'm Velvet Crow. I'm a district numeracy and literacy coach. I serve 9 schools in the district. I have about 14 years of experience in education, mainly with a special education background where I taught in the resource room for many years.
My name is Colleen Holman. I'm also a numeracy and literacy coach. I've been teaching for over 20 years, at least 12 of those in SPED. I always taught resource math, and now I work with the elementary middle schools, working with new teachers and SPED teachers.
So today we are going to talk with you guys about using some digital tools to help meet accommodations for special education students and 504 students in your classroom. But you can also use some of these suggestions or tips to help scaffold for other students also. The nice thing about this presentation is that all of these ideas or suggestions will be compiled in one place, and we will give you access to these slides for future reference, where you can look at the steps and watch some of the videos. Okay, so let's get started.
All right, so today we're going to talk first about Zoom. Now, I know when we think about Zoom, you're probably thinking a Zoom meeting, but actually Zoom can be used as a recording device, very similar to Screencastify. I personally prefer Zoom, where Velvet prefers Screencastify. So this just gives you another option as a recording device. You can use Zoom for the ReadAloud accommodations, whether it's for tests or assignments or repeated directions. So here we just have a list of some of the little tidbits that may be useful if you're using Zoom. For instance, a lot of people don't like Zoom because they feel they have to show their face. In Zoom, you can decide whether or not you want to show your face with video or without video. So you don't have to have that little box with your face in it. You can screen share anything on your computer, including videos. So if you want it to show a video, you can show a video. They do have an annotation feature that has a pointer, which I really love. It's a little red dot that you can point. You could insert text boxes wherever on your screen. And they also have a drawing feature where you can highlight, circle. They even have shapes that you can insert. To start a recording, you simply click host a meeting, and then an option will pop up saying with video on or off, and then click record. It's that simple, 3 steps, and you can be recording a video. If you do want to play a video, I found from trial and error that whenever you're going to share your computer screen, make sure you click the little button, and I have it at the bottom there circled. Make sure you click share computer sound. That will make sure that they can hear the video. If not, it'll be very, very low, and it's hard for them to hear. One quick thing is down here, I do have a little sample of what the video could be. I don't know why that just popped up right there with a password. We'll have to figure that one out. But you do have a sample test ReadAloud here where I just recorded myself reading a My Perspective test. But it's very easy to make a recording on Zoom. I personally find it a little easier. It's 3 buttons and you're done. All right, so once you make your video using Zoom, how do you get to it? Very simple. You would just go to your Zoom account, click on your account, click recording. Now, I'll be honest, once you find your recording, it may take 1 to 5 minutes for it to upload, especially if it's a longer video. The longer the video, the longer it would take to upload. Click share, and then you just hit that at the bottom. I have some pictures there to show you to copy your sharing information. So copy that. You can copy it on Google Classroom, email, Remind. Again, you can paste it anywhere, the video link. But Zoom is personally a little easier for me.
Okay, Screencastify. Screencastify is my preference. It's one of those platforms that we dove into last summer as a district, and I use it all the time. I feel like it's really easy to use. And it will help you meet the ReadAloud accommodation and the repeated directions accommodation. And you're probably wondering, well, what advantage do these have, say, over just reading the test aloud to the students or the assignment aloud to the students? Well, it'll keep you from having to read to multiple sections, and students will be able to replay if they need repeated directions or if they need to hear something again, they can replay the information. And it's also an advantage to these recordings is that you're recording in your human voice that they are familiar with, and you can add inflection and things like that. So all that you have to do to use Screencastify is pull up the material that you want to read, and then you're going to go over here to the Google Chrome extension toolbar and find the ReadAloud tool. And then when you click on it, this box pops up, and then you're simply going to do record. Now, it will give you a few seconds to get ready, to get your screen ready, and it'll give you kind of like a countdown, and then you can start your recording. So how do you share after you've made your recording? Well, to share with Screencastify, you're going to go back to the Screencastify box at the Google Chrome toolbar, and you're going to go to this icon. It'll pull up all of your recordings. You click on the one you want, and then you can copy the shareable link to insert into emails or on your website or email to a student, or whatever, however you want to push that out, or you can download it to your device.
And one thing I like to add too about doing the recordings, especially for test read aloud, the kids can pause it. If you're reading the test and they read question 1 and they need to take a minute to think about that answer, they can hit pause, answer the question, and then hit play when they're ready. So that's also a great benefit to making the recordings, is because the kids can then go at their pace as well.
Sure. So next we're going to talk about Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader is one of those text-to-speech tools. A lot of you, my SPED teachers out there, may be familiar with Snap and Read. It's sort of similar to Snap and Read, probably a little bit more user-friendly, and there's no license needed. And it will help with the read aloud and repeated directions accommodations. And to access Immersive Reader, you're going to access it through your Office 365 screen. And you see this little icon right here. That is your Word icon. You would click on that. And when you're in Word, in order to use Immersive Reader, you go to the View tab right here, this View button. And then you'll see the Immersive Reader. And when you click it, another box will come up. And what's really neat about Immersive Reader is you can change some things. So you can choose whether you want a female or a male voice to read, and you can choose the speed. So if you have students who comprehend maybe just a little bit slower, need it read a little bit slower, they can change their speed, and other students may want it to speed up. So that's an option also.
All right, so the other programmer we're going to talk about is ReadAloud. It is a Chrome extension, and this is a text-to-speech tool that works for Google Suites, any of the Google apps, Office 365, and web pages. So it can be used also just to read anything off the internet. This would help for any read-aloud accommodations, anything that the kids have to read aloud. There are several ReadAloud Chrome extension options, but we find, and we went ahead and inserted a picture of it, we found this one is very user-friendly. And so that would be what the icon would look like if you want to use this option. Now, they do have 2 ways that you can use this. I personally love to be able to read only the selected text. And it's very similar to what you would do to copy and paste something. They highlight the desired text, right-click on it, and then select Read Aloud. Now, not all platforms will allow you just to read a selected text. If a platform you're using does not allow you to select a certain text, then you may need to read the entire page. To do that, you just click on the Read Aloud icon. It would be at the top of your screen right here, and that would allow it to start reading the entire page. But we find a lot of our teachers especially prefer this option over Snap and Read. And sometimes it's a trial and error. Snap and Read's not working, and they'll try Read Aloud. But it's just another option that we have that you can use for any Read Aloud accommodations.
Okay, so the next thing that we want to show you guys is how to add audio to Google Slides. I picked this up at last year's Tech Week, and just wanted to throw it in here. I'll give you an example. So I'm going to see the little speaker at the bottom. And when I hover over it, I'm going to play.
Adding audio to Google Slides is a quick and easy process.
Okay, so that's just an example of audio.
Adding audio
has been added to the Google slide. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is grab a voice recorder. Some of your devices may already have one, but if not, the Google Chrome store provides some voice recorders. You're going to need something that will store the file as an MP3. Then you'll get your test out or your assignment out or whatever you want to make the audio recording of, and you're going to record that and download it. I like to rename it. Usually gives it some kind of funky name, like a bunch of numbers and letters together. So I kind of like to rename it also so I can find it easily later. Then you're going to add the audio. You're going to move your file to the Google Drive. You'll have to make sure it's inserted there in order to put it into a Google slide. So you would just click New, File, Upload, and then go get that file. Next, on the Google slide that you want to add the audio to, you're going to go to Insert, Audio, and then a box will pop up that has the audio items that you have put into Google. That's going to pop up and you'll select the one that you want. And then the next thing the students will see on the slide is the speaker icon. So the student clicks on the speaker in order to hear the audio file that you've inserted to the slide. Now, I know that seemed very complicated, but once you get used to doing it, it becomes very simple. I've also embedded a video into this slide that walks you through this process again, in case you need that.
All right, so the next thing we were going to talk about, calculators. Most of our students or a lot of our students who have accommodations may have calculator usage. If a student is at home and they don't have a physical handheld calculator with them, there's a few options that they could use. So one easiest would be to use the calculator on their computer, but the calculator on their computer will be limited to a 4-function calculator. If a student might be in 8th grade and up and they need a more complex calculator, whether it's scientific or graphing, then one option they can use is Desmos. Desmos is completely free. It is just a website you can go to. This is what the Desmos scientific calculator looks like, and this is what their graphing calculator looks like. I would just a friendly reminder that we should use the calculator as similar as possible to the one they're going to use on the LEAP test. If they get used to using this format of a scientific calculator and then the day of LEAP, it's a different one, they may struggle and that may add some timing. So I would recommend try as much as possible to use the same calculator on LEAP. And also if a student has a calculator on their accommodations, then they are allowed a calculator at all times. Okay. Oh, and we're also right now going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about delivery systems. Now I know we're going to talk today about Remind, Google Classroom, Office 365, and Google Email. A lot of these you are familiar with. We're going to kind of talk about how to use these a little bit outside the box, okay? And really talk about how we can use these systems to meet accommodations.
Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is one that I love. It's called Remind, and many of you use that. One thing that this will help you do is meet the accommodation of copy of notes, providing daily assignment lists, homework lists, and study guides. So we want you to think out of the box when you're using Remind, when you're thinking of these things. You know, lots of times teachers set up a group for all of their sections or maybe a group for each sections. But think about this, within those sections, you might want to set up a separate group for students who receive just these accommodations so that it's easy to push things out to just them. Another thing that we encourage for you to do, lots of times you write things on the board and you maybe don't want to take the time to have the students write all of that down, or you may have some students who take a long time to write things down. You can use the camera on your phone to capture that and then send that out through a Remind also. Another tip that we wanted to give you about Remind is that, you know, you have a limited number of characters that you can send out with your Remind. So lots of teachers like to take a picture of the document or the information and send it out because you can send as much text as you want in the picture. Also, teachers that have students that also attend a study skills classroom or an enrichment classroom, you may want to create a separate group in your Remind just for those support teachers or those special education teachers so that you all can be on the same page on what you're doing in class and what you're working on in class. So don't limit Remind to just students and parents. Remember that you can include paras and other teachers so that you can collaborate in things like study skills and enrichment.
As a study skills teacher myself, I would have loved to have been on a teacher's Remind. That way, when we ask the kids, hey, do you have anything to study for? Oh, no, we have nothing. Well, I just got a Remind from Mr. So-and-so, and you have a test Friday. So think about putting those teachers on the Remind as well. They would love it.
So if your para and your SPED teacher is part of your Remind and they can have access, they can be responsible for help meeting those accommodations and pushing those items out through Remind.
Right, taking that picture and sending it through Remind. All right, so Google Classroom, after the year we just had, I think every teacher is probably a professional with Google Classroom. It is a great delivery system that our parish chose to use last year. I just want to kind of touch up on a few things that maybe we didn't think about, or again, thinking outside the box. You can attach your Zoom recordings, Screencastify recordings, study guides. Remember, if a child has an accommodation, a study guide, that's one thing that would be great, is just attach it to your Google Classroom. To attach a link, to click add, go to Google Classroom, click add, then select the link, and then paste the link in the window. Make sure you fill out all the assignment requirements and then select assign. The one thing that I like to do is that you don't have to send each assignment or each link to the entire class. You can select the individual students that you want to send something to. So if you do have 5 students that have the accommodation of Test ReadAloud, you can send that recording that you made either in Zoom or Screencastify to only those 5 students. Now, for test security, if you're worried that this recording of your test will be out there after the test is over, you can always go back and delete that assignment that you had the recording in. So it's not going to be on Google forever. But that's just something that I personally, for any students who have accommodations, you can send just those few things to those kids, to those students that have those accommodations.
Okay, let's talk about email, Office 365 or Gmail. The thing that I love about our email system is that you can create groups. And I use this all year long because I work with different types of teachers. I work with new teachers. I work with SPED teachers. So I like to be able to push out emails to different groups. You can do the same thing. Those links that we talked about earlier, when you create something like a Screencastify or a Zoom video, and you need to push that link out, well, you can push it out in a group where you don't have to type in every student that receives that accommodation's names. You just simply go to the groups on the left-hand side of your email, click New Group. You're going to name that group. You're going to click create, and then you simply start adding members to that group. After that, to send an email, you simply start typing in the name of the group in the new email, and you can edit those groups by doing manage groups on the left-hand side of the screen. You can manage the groups, which means you can add people to it. So as you get new students or students come to you, or students get a accommodation added in the year and they need to be put into that group, you can add members to that group.
And also just a reminder, you do have to name the group. I would not put like 7th grade SPED students. If you look, the way she named her group was 7th grade students and then in parentheses study guide. So if you had to email study guides out, that way it's kind of a reminder for you as well. Okay, this is my group that receives study guides. And you might have another group that has Test ReadAloud. Sure. You might put 7th grade students in parentheses, Test ReadAloud. But try to stay away from that labeling it SPED students, because they will see that name pop up as well. All right, so we just went over Office 365, but we also now have Gmail. And I know most teachers, my children's teachers, they will email them through the student's Gmail account. So you can do the exact same thing and making groups through Gmail, very similar to what Velvet just did with Office 365, okay? So you just go to Gmail, and then you're going to create select create right down here at the bottom, and then you're going to name it. And again, I just put 7th grade students study guide. And then you go in, once you create that, you have to go into your waffle and then go to contact. So it kind of gives you an extra step. You have to create the folder, like the label, and then go to your waffles to add contacts into that folder you just created. So you go to contacts in your waffle, then you go down to select directory. Now, what's good about it is here, because all our students have a Gmail account, if you type up the name, their email will immediately pop up. So once that name pops up, you select it, select the 3 dots at the right here, and then select them and then select the group name. So it does give you an extra step. You have to go to the waffle to add students to it, but it's a little easier because their names will pop up. Now, if we have more than one Colleen Holman in the parish, you may have to know exactly which one. Sometimes it might be Colleen Holman 1 or something like that. So you may have to know the extra, the email name if you have more than one in the parish. And then to send that email, you just go to your Gmail, click compose, and then you type the name of your group. So 7th grade student study guide. The members of that group will pop up. Now, it's the same thing. You can edit the group as needed. You can add or delete group members, or you can delete the entire group in the contacts app in the little Google Waffle. So at the end of the year, if you want to delete that whole group to get started fresh the next year, you can just delete that entire group email. Okay. So again, that was just going over real quick some of the delivery systems and how we can use them differently to reach those accommodations and make sure we meet the accommodations that students receive. Okay. So the next little part that we're going to go over is personally one of my favorites. It's little tidbits, little things we learned while being in the SPED classroom, while going into SPED classrooms today. And one thing that I absolutely love is talking about students who have difficulty reading may have dyslexia. A lot of times it's an undiagnosed condition. They may have a learning disability for reading comprehension or reading fluency, which in reality they may have dyslexia. All our platforms offer a dyslexia font. So Microsoft Word offers something called Sitka Small, and all these fonts do is they take the spacing of the words and they spread them out a little bit. And people with dyslexia find it's a lot easier to read because the spacing of the letters are a little further apart. So if you were typing something in Word, you can use Sitka Small. Even if you don't have children with dyslexia, I personally, anytime I use anything in Word, it's going to be in Sitka Small. So even if I don't know anyone with dyslexia, it can still help struggling readers. Now in Google, they have a lot of options in Google, and it's all called LexIn. It's all called LexIn, but they have 7 different LexIn fonts, ranging from Deca all the way down to Zeta. And the width and spacing of each of those fonts increase with the alphabet. So in Deca, this entire presentation that we did today was in the Deca font. So the letters are going to be closest in Deca. And this little box down here, that was in LexIn Exa. So that one, as you can see, is a little further apart. So maybe if you're teaching kindergarten and those babies are just beginning readers, they might need the bigger spacing apart. And so it gives you some options. The one thing with Google is that it's not going to, when you go to the fonts, you won't see it. You actually have to add it to the Google fonts. So down here, I just wrote how you would do that. You would go to Google, select, when you go to your fonts, it's going to have a button called Select More Fonts. Type in Lexin into the search bar, and all 7 of them will pop up. You can select all 7, or you can select just the one you want and then click OK. What's great about that is if you did this in Google Docs, it will be in Google Suites. It will be in all the other Google apps. So you only have to add it one time, and it will be there always after that. And again, this just helps a lot of students with dyslexia. They need that spacing apart of the words. It makes it a little easier for them to read.
Okay, so our next tidbits, Novelay. It's a Google Chrome extension that allows you to add colored overlays. Some of our teachers like to use those for their dyslexic students. So that is a source for that. So anything on the web browser would have a colored overlay, and you can choose the color, yellow, green, blue. Those are there. Another thing we wanted to mention in tidbits is that if you use tech to help meet accommodations, it also makes documentation for the accommodations a lot easier. For example, you leave a digital footprint. So if, let's say you email a student a study guide, but then the parent says, well, we never got a study guide, but you have digital documentation at that point that yes, you did actually send the study guide because it would be in your emails.
And Remind also keeps it. So, I mean, I have Remind proof from years ago that's still in my Remind account.
Right. So it can help you with documentation also. So that's another plus. We also wanted to remind you that not all testing platforms include a ReadAloud feature. So you may want to utilize some of the things we showed you today, but if you choose to read something aloud from an online platform, be cognizant of the fact that sometimes they randomize the questions. So for example, one time Kylene was teaching a class and she was giving an assessment and she was going to open it up and read it for her students, quickly realized that the questions had been randomized. So what was a question for one student, their number 1 was the other student's number 5. So be cognizant of that.
And sometimes they have the option where it tells you, do you want the questions randomized or not? So if you were going to read it out loud to the class, then don't pick that. I would just log in as a student and then read it to my class. But for that one, they didn't have that option. So I was running around the classroom trying to read different questions to 30 different kids. One thing I'd like to add about the overlay, I guess dyslexia is a passion of mine. A lot of kids, you have to figure out what color works best for them. They say reading on white with black letters is the worst for a child with dyslexia. I remember practicing and giving my students different overlays. And one time I gave one student pink and he was like, oh my God, the letter stopped bouncing. And then another kid, it happened for yellow. So what's great about the Chrome extension is they can play and see which ones. You can go to the school aid store and buy these overlays and have them practice that way. But it might be really good to try the Chrome extension first to see what color works for them before they go out and buy that colored overlay.
Okay, the next slide is just a sample of a good tracking form to keep up with your students and what accommodations that they need. Most special education teachers have access to something like this. If they don't, their IEP facilitators will. And then if you still can't find one you like and you'd like a digital copy of this one, just email us. Okay, let's take a look at questions and comments from the chat.
All right, I'm looking at the chat and I do see someone said, love the tidbits. Yes, we love her. I love the tidbits as well. I don't
Those tidbits were amazing. Absolutely loved them. And the overlay that you can put over a screen, that's so cool.
I love it because it allows me to figure out free what color they like. And so if, you know, like if they like yellow, then by all means go buy them the yellow overlay that they put on their paper assessments as well. But it does give you that chance for them to see all the different ones.
Absolutely. That is a great one and it's free. We love us some free over here. Well, ladies, we really do appreciate you taking the time to, an effort to do this for us and to share some great ways that we can meet the needs of all of our students. So we definitely appreciate that. You can access their Google Slides if you want to pull your camera up and scan that. We also did drop it in the chat. And don't forget to fill out our survey and attendance link.
And if you have any questions on any of this or any way to reach accommodations, you feel free to email Velvet or myself. We'd be happy to help with any of that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And join us for our next one where we talk about digital choice boards in SPED. Thanks again, ladies. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.